Hi everyone, this is our proposal paper titled Is My Mic On? Preparing Software Engineering Students for Collaborative Remote Work and Hybrid Team Communication. My name is Makayla and I am currently a PhD student at Clemson University, and I will be presenting our paper today. My collaborators are Denae from Microsoft Research and Paige Rodeghero, an assistant professor at Clemson University. So let's get started. Traditionally, students taking software engineering courses have semester-long team projects to help prepare them for future workplace roles. These projects teach important skills to students such as teamwork, communication, scheduling, familiarity with code bases, and more. However, as we all know, attending this conference, the COVID-19 pandemic has forced many institutions to utilize remote learning or remote conferences. This means that students are now having to complete these industry-level projects via remote communication methods such as Zoom, Slack, Discord, Microsoft Teams, and many more. The same would have to be said for the majority of professional software developers as well. COVID-19 has forced many developers to switch from working in the office to working at home. There has been some research done on the communication challenges between remote developers. Developers have noted that it takes longer to get a response from a coworker remotely than it would if they were in person working together. You can't just walk up to their cubicle and ask them for help and things like that. There is also a pressure for developers to be responsive at all times, including after the working hours are over, with these constant notifications on our cell phones, from our computers, the immersiveness of this technology. There's just a lot of pressure for developers to continuously be responsive to their coworkers. However, professional software developers are also heavily relying on remote communication software such as Zoom, Slack, or Microsoft Teams to communicate and collaborate with their coworkers and clients during the COVID-19 pandemic. Which leads us to the question, how well do teams communicate remotely? For students, it has been noted that communication is something that they are deficient in after they graduate and find a job. Recent research has identified challenges of recently graduated developers, which gives us some insights into the curriculum needs that current students have. Research has also shown that for student teams, communication is perceived as a challenge. Students would prefer to have face-to-face meetings over meeting remotely via Zoom, or even remote chatting via Slack or Discord. However, there has been an increase in distributed software engineering teams leading up to the pandemic, which has forced professionals to adopt these online communication tools. So, in total, student teams have not yet adapted to the remote communication methods that professional teams are already accustomed to, which leads us to the underlying question of this proposal paper. Are online and hybrid classes preparing students for future remote development roles? This question is the basis of this proposal and one that we hope to begin to answer with our research in this area. Our paper has 4 main research questions in relation to our underlying goal. We currently do not know what communication tools are being used by industry, so our first question is to determine these tools by asking what communication tools are currently being used by industry. We also do not know if there are standard tools used by student teams, which motivates our second question, what communication tools are used by student teams? We also know that not all teams communicate in the same ways, so we would like to explore what they perceive as effective communication during remote work. So our question is, what do teams define as effective communication while working remotely? Our last question investigates how academic usage of communication software differs from that of industry uses, and how academic institutions can adapt their courses to better reflect industry development processes. Our question is, how can we get student developer communication tools to be more reflective of industrial development while still staying learning-centric? Next, I'll talk about our methodology. We plan on breaking our study up into 2 parts. The first part will take a look at student teams and how they utilize their communication software. We plan on distributing surveys via social media platforms such as Reddit, Twitter, Facebook, and LinkedIn to maximize the number of respondents. We will specifically target university-related groups such as college subreddits and Facebook groups to post our advertisements. The students will then complete the survey, and at the end, will be asked to send the research team an email if they are interested in being interviewed. If they are interested in an interview, we will set up a time and conduct a semi-structured interview with the student to gain further insights into their group project and how well their team communicated, and the technologies they used. Lastly, we will collect all of the survey data and interview responses to analyze them. The second set of information we want to gather comes from professional software development teams. The setup is exactly the same as the student teams. First, we will distribute our surveys via social media platforms to specific software development groups, and then the developers will take the survey and send the research team an email if they're interested in the optional interview. If they are, then the research team will set up a time and will conduct a semi-structured interview with the developer. And then at the end, we will collect and compile all survey and interview data for analysis. Once we have collected the data, we plan to conduct a thematic analysis. This will allow us to determine the frequency of the responses so that we can compare and contrast tool usage between the student group and the developer group. Once this comparison is complete, we plan to give recommendations to the industry and academic communities based on what we find. In total, our paper presented a proposed evaluation of communication tools that are used by professional software engineering development teams and student teams in academia. We plan to break our study into two parts, first by examining the academic usage, and then exploring the professional usage through surveys and interviews. Based on our findings, we will make recommendations to academia and industry as well as learn more about the collaboration tools used by each. Lastly, if we can learn more about these tools and how they are being used, we can better prepare students for their future careers. On this slide, you will find a list of the references referenced within this presentation. On this slide, you'll find our contact information. We would like to receive as much feedback as possible from the community and welcome researchers, teachers, and software engineers looking to collaborate on this work. Please feel free to send an email if you're interested to any member of the research team. Lastly, we would like to thank you for listening to our presentation. Thank you.
Okay, here we go. We're live, and we have Denae, Paige, and Makayla here to answer your questions. So please enter them in the chat window. And we already have Marianne asking a question. Let me read it out loud. Thank you for the nice presentation. Thank you, guys. Totally understand why we want to know which online discussion environment is most productive for industry, but I'm wondering whether this should also be the case for an educational setting. Should we not enable students to collaborate in online environments regardless of the tools?
Okay. So that's a great question. I think that yes, we should allow students to collaborate no matter what the tool is. But I think what we're most interested in seeing is if those tools that they choose are helping them transition into industry.
Okay, thank you. Let's see whether we have a follow-up question. So no, so maybe I can follow up on that because I had a similar question as well I wanted to ask. So it looks like you're focusing on individual specific tools like Slack versus Discourse versus whatever Piazza, and I was wondering whether rather than focusing on the tools themselves, which may be transient, and I think the online communication space, especially, is changing fast. Like Slack was here, and then it looks like all of a sudden everybody wants to be on Discourse for whatever reason. Would it make sense to also maybe focus on features, attributes, learning curves, whatever makes a tool special, and try to kind of gather which combination of these attributes or features make an effective environment?
Yes, I believe that we are looking into those specific features, maybe not, diving deeply into it. We are asking students and developers, what is your favorite part of this application? What is your least favorite part of this application? And how can we improve this application to make it better to fit your needs?
All right, so that you would be able to infer just some general qualities that make these kinds of applications more effective or less effective, which would be really, really nice.
Yeah.
Elke is asking, what is the actual status of the survey? Are there already results?
So we are still in the early stages. The survey is written, but we haven't sent it out just yet.
And when would you be expecting results? Like, are they going to be ready for next ICSI or before that?
So we are currently working on it. So I would say they would be ready before the next ICSI.
Cool. And how much data are you planning to collect? Like, how many subjects are you aiming at?
I think we're aiming for 250, both student and industry. But as many as we can get, seeing as how we're distributing online.
Of course. Is it going to be mainly within Microsoft as far as industry subjects are concerned, or are you going outside of Microsoft as well?
I think we're going to do both. So Denae is going to handle the Microsoft side, and then we are going to also advertise on social media like Reddit, Twitter, Facebook, LinkedIn, those places to see if we can get more diversity as well.
It's cool. Looking forward to what you discover at the end of this. I'm not seeing any more questions on the chat window. So what do I have here? I was also wondering whether are you going to be focusing specifically on the communication tool space or also in general, collaboration tools like whiteboarding, diagramming, I don't know, project management, that sort of thing.
We are looking mostly at communication tools and some collaboration tools and figuring out how those two sets of tools are connected, how people use them. Like, are they using the whiteboarding tools? Are they not? Things like that.
Okay. All right. Very cool. Okay. We have about 5 minutes to go, but if the discussion is dying, then we can give the audience a little bit of a break before their next session. So what I would suggest that you do is, in case some of the people in the audience, they want to meet you one-on-one, maybe stay here for another 4 minutes, and then when the discussion group option is available, join the discussion room so that you can connect with people if they want to interact with you one-on-one. And the discussion groups or rooms are just like regular Zoom rooms. Everybody can turn on their video and microphone. So I suggest that we give Paige, Denae, and Makayla a virtual applause. Okay, and thank you for taking questions, and we'll see you somewhere else in the conference. Okay, I'm going to leave you to it and then go to my next session.